Good evening and welcome to the March 2015 meeting of the Lopatcong Township Planning Board. At this time, I would like to invite you to join us in a silent moment of prayer, followed immediately by the oath of allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I'm required to state that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided indicating the time and place of the meeting in accordance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975. By advertising a notice in the Star Gazette and the Express Times, and by posting a copy on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Beth, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Members Belcaro, Clymer, Jagan,
Here.
Fishback,
Here.
France, Corral,
Here.
Paul,
Here.
Liptak,
Here.
Mayor McKay,
Here.
Vice Chairman Pryor,
Here.
and Chairman Bishop.
Here. Thank you, Beth. Next order of business, under old business, has everyone received a copy of the minutes of the February 25th, 2015 meeting? Are there any corrections, additions, or comments on those?
I have a comment. The minutes seem to be more of a, I don't know, they're not minutes, they're kind of like a transcript. Is that what the committee wants? They want transcript of the proceedings, or they want verbatim minutes of the proceedings? It's something we have to talk about a little bit.
It's my understanding that we're required to have a transcript, not a transcript, a recording available, but the minutes themselves are typically a summary.
These are very long.
Yeah, summary of, they're not verbatim. They don't have to be verbatim. That's
No.
my understanding.
That's mine too.
Requirement is.
That's my understanding.
They have to be verbatim on when you're having a hearing.
A hearing.
That is required by law.
A hearing, but not a meeting, correct?
That's our understanding, yes.
Let me say, we say we're going to follow Robert's rules, but verbatim minutes aren't really Robert's rules. Robert's rules call for concise minutes. Just something to bring up to the committee's attention.
I would like to say that I think that the minutes should be concise. Minutes are usually brevity. It's a high-level kind of overview of what's happened in the thing. We don't need a transcript of what's happened through the whole thing, and I think it makes it easier for our secretary, for Beth. We don't need the whole transcript, because as you get that and you try to read it, it's a very long document. Trying to read through everyone's comments and everything that happens through the meeting. So the minutes should be just more of a concise, high-level type of document. If there's a hearing, that's different. But in terms of minutes, it should be more concise.
And you're putting terms out here, high level, concise. How do we actually define that?
We don't need, in terms of what we received in this packet for this month, we don't need the whole transcript of what happened for February. We don't need that. I mean, this could have been consolidated into one page. As really what were the issues, what we talked about. It could be much more efficient and more concise.
And they should.
We don't need to know what everybody said.
And they should. Yeah. And it would be nice if the pages were numbered, because if you drop your package, you're in big trouble. You can't put it back together again. And when you do it this way, you have a lot of situations where the word inaudible is used, and I don't know what that means. I mean, I guess it means that the secretary couldn't understand the tape, but it's some people you see it's used very, very frequently with some names and almost never with others. And, it just lends itself towards maybe misinterpretation down the line about what the intent was there.
Any further comment?
Yeah, Beth, we have a recording, correct?
Yes, we do.
So anybody who's over what we said, what would you have to do?
Oh, I could just make it a test.
All right. I mean, this is the way we've always been doing it, so I mean, I don't see.
I would rather err on the side of having a little bit more than not enough.
Yeah, that's because we've been
Because
chastised in the past
Past for not having enough.
Yeah.
So I think they're perfectly fine the way they stand here. So, I mean, the reading is easy, goes through, covers everything we did. As far as the inaudible, I mean, you find that on the regular transcripts from court reporters that come up that they can't understand what someone has said somewhere along the line. You can't go back and do
Yeah,
it.
if you don't talk directly into the microphone, you turn your face. It's sometimes very hard to
So I think this is clear,
distinguish what the words are.
concise, exactly what was happening at that meeting, and I don't see anything wrong with the way she's doing it now.
I agree. I understand. I hear you.
So,
Change is good. People don't like change. But I think the minutes need to change to be shorter, brevity, concise. Let them know what the content is.
Who makes the
We all don't need,
decision what's important and what isn't?
yeah, but we all don't need to receive a 20-page document of a transcript of the meeting. It doesn't make sense.
If you don't care to read it, don't read it. And it's what happened.
That's not what a document, that's not what minutes are about. Minutes are about the brevity of the meeting. They're not about the whole entirety of the meeting.
It's not my impression.
Well, you have the tape to back it up, so if you have concise minutes of a few pages, then one has the option to go back and look at the tape if one wants more details, right? I mean, before we didn't have the tape, but nowadays you have the
we've
tape.
always had the tapes.
Okay.
So we've always had it there. So I'm not going to beat the issue. It's just my opinion.
Any further comment?
Well, I don't feel strongly about it. If everybody's comfortable with the minutes the way they are, I don't have a problem with that. I don't know how much work it is, but it's my understanding minutes don't have to be a transcript of the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I agree. It doesn't have to be a transcript, but it's pretty much told us what we had going here, so.
So just to make it, I'll give an example. We discussed a resolution number 1508. So what you would do there is you just take all that and say a discussion took place on the resolution, and that's it.
You would hit highlights.
You would hit the highlights of the discussion. We don't need to know what everyone's interjections were.
Who decides what the highlights are?
Yeah, that's all.
It's all subjective.
Our chairman.
He doesn't.
I don't make up the meeting, the minutes.
He doesn't do minutes, the secretary does.
Come on, guys, you're being ridiculous. You don't.
Well, why do you want to
don't need, you do not need, I don't care if we're in a public forum, I don't care if you're in a corporate forum, I don't care where you are. You don't need every single interjection, every single minute word of what everyone says. You do not need that. You have a backup. You're going above and beyond, way above and beyond. That's all I'm saying.
So what you would do is you would have a discussion took place on that resolution, the synopsis of what the basic end result was, and then the motions, the people that made the motions to accept or reject.
Well, the motions go in verbatim.
Right. This is no. I'm just trying to clarify I do minutes. I do minutes that are actually subject to the Department of Labor.
So we have a topic.
When you do minutes, do you do verbatim minutes?
I do discussion took place, and then I put down the subject and motions and who made the motions. But again, I'm not dealing with the public. Nobody's opering me.
Mm-hmm.
okay?
I understand.
You know, that's what I'm saying. So that's what you're looking for, you know, discussion on the topic, the end result of the topic, and then how the votes went to adopt that topic. Is that what we're looking for? To compress this?
To me, something simple. A topic, a summary, 1 or 2 sentences, and you vote. You don't need all the added
Then I think
garbage.
the board needs to give the secretary the forum of what you guys are looking for. In other words, you know, topic, synopsis of the end result, and again, motions and, you know, and votes, so that the secretary knows how to navigate through the minutes. That's all. You're looking to shorten them up.
Well, maybe next time we'll bring Robert's rules with us and we'll take a look at that. I'm just trying to save work, and when you have stuff like this to wade through, and then there's a lot of misspelled names and things like that. I don't know if that's a problem for everybody here, but one person's name I see continually misspelled by a lot.
Well, that would come under corrections or omissions to the minutes.
Mm-hmm.
What becomes a legal document at the end of the day? If I could ask our attorney.
Sure.
Is it the written document, the minutes, or is it the recording?
The answer is both.
Both?
Both, because the minutes are adopted for a reason. They become a part of the official record and memorializes, in effect, what the board has done. If someone wants to order a transcript, they can do that as well. I've sat back and I've tried to keep my mouth shut. Now I'll just put my 2 cents in. I think the minutes need to be as complete as they can be to apprise the public of what transpired at meetings. If they are as cryptic as one of our members has suggested, I don't think they fairly apprise the board or the public of what's happened. I think the public needs to be at least have the opportunity to read the minutes if they want, and to see what the arguments were, see what the discussion points were, see who said what, and then see what action the board took. Short of that, the minutes aren't going to be of much value to anyone. And I guess the response could be someone could order a transcript, but that's sort of self-defeating. Are these minutes posted, and are they made available to the public? Are they put on the website?
Well, we talked about that last time.
Right.
You know, starting this process. And yeah, they're certainly made available to the public anytime they want to come in and request a copy.
It's a whole lot easier, especially if they're going to be posted on the website. If the board's going to be criticized, it's going to be criticized because it's not transparent and doesn't provide enough information to the public. I'd rather see more in the minutes than less. Just from a public policy standpoint, I think you're on safer ground. Does it create? Beth might welcome the opportunity for shorter minutes. It's less that she's got to transcribe and deal with. But I think for the benefit of the public, they should be longer than shorter. And if it takes us longer to read them, I think that's one of the prices you pay for the big bucks you get when you get appointed to the board.
I agree with you unequivocally. We should do that, but I don't think the public wants to read the transcript. So I think that there needs to be a happy medium as to really what we're putting out there. Again, come on. The public's going to go onto a website, or the public's going to receive a link or whatever it is. They're not going to read 18, 20 pages of minutes of what is essentially a transcript. They're not going to read that. They're not going to care about it. You need something that's more of a higher level that people will receive, will understand, will get the gist of it. They don't need to know what our communications are among each other. They don't need the transcript. And with that, they think of the general population. We have 4 people here representing the Township of Lopatcong Seaway. There are not many people that are interested in the minutes of the planning board for Lopatcong Township.
I don't think that's a reason that we shouldn't have a complete set of minutes.
But what defines a complete set of minutes? Do you want minutes where things are transcribed and you put over? Or do you just want a copy of a transcript of the recording of what happens? So that's where I leave it.
I hear you.
I leave it to the board.
I hear what you're saying.
Whatever the decision is of the chairman and our attorney, whatever you think is best.
My only response is it may be easier said than done. If you're the person that's preparing those minutes and you want them to be a bit more than cryptic and provide the public with some indication of what transpired at the meeting, you then have to play Solomon. What gets included, what doesn't get included. And you're then subject to criticism because you may have left something out that some third party might think is very relevant. There's no easy answer here. There's just no easy answer. It's up to the board.
Any further comment?
Well, yeah, about the minutes being online on the computer and transparency, they haven't been put on the computer since the summer of 2013 on the website. So, and nobody sees this stuff anyhow. It just sits in a drawer somewhere. And it would be, I think, very much appropriate that those minutes be posted to the website. And I think we should make a resolution that occur.
As we don't have a webmaster in the planning board,
Hmm?
Beth, have all the minutes been made available to the public?
Always.
So they've always been available to the public. I think you should be taking that matter up with whoever the webmaster is. They're here, they've been available. They shouldn't be posted until after they've been approved. But we're not in the business of posting them on the website. Our secretary has them, they're there. Why aren't they on? I'll ask the question, why aren't they on the website?
Well, you should ask that of the secretary.
No, we should ask that of the web person.
But you've done all the minutes, correct? In August, I know we approved them all. What happened from there? Does somebody come and say, yeah, minutes, and we'll put them on the web, or are you responsible for putting them on the web?
If the council, if the board wants them on the web, I'll send them off to have them put on the web.
But you're not the person that actually puts them on the web.
No, no.
So they're available, why are they not on the web then? I don't think it's a question we ask her, who's the webmaster?
Lori Chesler. Lori Chesler is the webmaster. She's the one who puts them up there.
I'm sorry, we're venturing off the whole point. And all my discussion and my point was that I think we need to shorten what we're putting out. I don't know who is responsible for putting them out there. I don't know between a webmaster or if it's through our town. I'm not sure, and I really don't care who is responsible for the minutes out there. All I'm saying is I would like to look for something as I go shorter. I don't need to know how many people or how many times I said in minutes. And there are many line items when you look at the minutes that say hello, or very short, just being rude to the fact of what's out there. We don't need to see that. And I'm not going to belabor the point anymore. We need to move on. There are much more significant issues to talk about. I'm just saying I hope that the board and everyone can really reevaluate what we're putting out there in terms of minutes.
One thing I would like to see is that the pages be numbered and dated so that one can find something on the minutes with some degree of ease. Does anyone object to that?
Any problem with numbering the pages?
No, I don't.
Okay.
And dating them, so we know what date, when it was prepared. I looked at the minutes of some of the
You want
largest
each page?
institutions in the world, and they
Want
never
each
look like
page
this.
dated?
What?
Want each page dated?
The machine computer does it.
Well, it is dated now. It's dated in the,
Well, that's, somebody typed that, though. But the software will easily date everything.
I don't have
Automatically.
software that dates everything. I
What?
don't have any specific software.
You don't have Word?
Oh, I do, but
Word does it.
I believe that dates it when it's printed out. Am I correct? Like, it'll give the date that it's printed if I'm not.
Mhm.
You can do it either
You
way.
can
put it-
insert.
you put it in the header or the footer, and it'll repeat
Right.
each page.
Right. So.
Any further comments? No corrections?
There's corrections as to spellings of names and such. Do you want to go through that?
Well,
It would be kind of hard to do since the pages aren't numbered, but forget it. Just wait.
Hearing no further objections, minutes will stand as published. Okay, let's move on to, George, you have a report on the COA situation we're in the state?
Yes, I have a bit of an update. As many of you are probably aware, the Supreme Court on March 10th, came down with a decision on COA. Essentially, what the courts have found is that COA, in failing to adopt the rules for round 3, has basically failed the basic test of providing affordable housing in the state. And the courts have, for all intensive purposes, suggested that they're going to take over the management and running of the affordable housing program in the state of New Jersey. What they've said is that for the next 90 days, their order is on stay. So there's a 90-day period in here where the courts are going to set up some judicial panels that will be given the authority to essentially review various applications pending before COA for certification, decide if they meet the criteria on certification, and then certify them, or not certify them if they find it does not meet the constitutional obligation of providing affordable housing. That's what they're going to try to get organized over the 90 days, and that's starting from the date of the order, which is March 10th. 30 days after that period, all the communities that are currently either have certification before COA under round 3 or have pending certifications in front of COA, which Lopatcong Township does. We filed back in 2010, and that's where it stopped because of court suits. They have a 30-day period, if they wish, to file with the courts to obtain certification through the court system. If they don't have to do that. It's a voluntary program. If you choose not to do that, that's fine, except that then the courts have decided that you will no longer be covered under what is called protection from the builder's remedy, which means those suits, those towns that are not involved with the courts, either having their certification or in the process of getting their certification through the courts, they then become available for suit by private developers to do what has traditionally been called in the housing circle as the builder's remedy. And what that is essentially a builder can come into a community, show that the community has not met its obligation to provide affordable housing, and seek to have the courts impose upon you a plan to provide that housing. And that might be apartments at 10 or 12 to the acre. It might be all different kinds of housing combinations that involve an affordable housing component that the courts will then review and possibly find in favor of the private developer, to essentially order the town to accept or approve those situations. The one thing I did say is that after in front of the court, you also, once you submit, if the court either disagrees or finds that there should be changes in your plan, they give you another 5 months to do that. So there's different time windows in that. But the most significant thing is that after this 90-day period runs from March 10th, the communities only have 30 days to file. So that's something that Lopatcong or any town that has an application pending in front of COA should be thinking about whether or not they want to proceed with filing with the court to help maintain and keep their protection from the builder's remedy. So that's sort of what's going on. Now, as everything goes, it's never quite that clean. The courts have also said that sometime during this 90-day period, if COA chooses to act, in other words, adopt a third round set of rules, or if the state legislature chooses to get involved and actually does something to set up new rules, then the jurisdiction will revert back to COA and we will go forward from there. So it's not 100% guaranteed that at the end of this whole process that COA won't vote to approve it on day 29 and a new process will start again. But I think the most significant thing to decide is do you want to risk losing your protection from the builder's remedy? That's really what's up here. And whether or not you feel it's appropriate to file. The other thing that should be sort of kept in the back of the mind is that because the town is in the Highlands, there was an agreement between COA and the Highlands that helped reduce the overall obligations to many of the communities in our situation. And it is important as it affects Lopatcong. There's probably close to an 80-unit difference in terms of whether you're follow the Highlands rules or whether you just are subject to COA rules in general. Now those, I don't want them to be looked at as absolute numbers because the Supreme Court has also said that they found, and I know this gets confusing, but they found that the gross share portion of all the calculations that COA did in the past were unconstitutional. They didn't follow the law properly. So the courts have left open the adjustments of all the plans to make them legal and somehow account for removing the gross share as part of the calculation. What that is, I'm not sure yet. And the other thing that is still up in the air is right at the time that the Highlands and COA came to an understanding of how they treat towns in the Highlands, they were all, then there was a suit brought by the affordable advocates against that settlement. And I have the paperwork that was filed with the courts. I don't know the outcome of that. So it's something that Mr. Spazzaro may want to look into. I can give him the court cases to see if it was finally resolved, whether that's going forward or whether that's been struck. But I think it's very important that the town think about what they do, and we should think about it fairly quickly because it not only involves getting our little plan available and in the proper form, but it also requires the township, their solicitor, to actually begin to investigate what type of filings he must do to actually get us in during that 30-day period that is open. So it's something that we have to start thinking about. I will say that under the plans that we have currently pending in front of COA, we were able to basically provide plans that show that we can provide the affordable housing that's being required. We're either really at the 162 level or even at the lower level of 89. So we can meet our obligation going forward with credits and that type of thing. We're all expecting that the courts will tend to use the same procedure that COA uses because they're not going to reinvent the wheel in 90 days on how we're going to go ahead. So we think truthfully the simplest thing to do is to take the plans we have in front of COA and simply clean them up a little bit and refile. And then if the courts come back and say, no, this is quite what we want, you still have 5 months to get it straightened out. So again, it's just something to think about, but the clock's running. And there should be some decisions to go one way or the other made fairly quickly so that the township attorneys can start thinking about their role in it, and we can start thinking about pulling stuff together. Because in reality, the last time this was seriously worked on was 2010. It's been laying on the shelf ever since then because of various lawsuits. I will point out that the one person that that will be a objector at every hearing will be the affordable housing. I keep forgetting their name, but it's a
Housing Center.
Fair Housing Center is a invited participant on every hearing. So they will be there, and they advocate for housing, and I expect they'll be looking at the packages and trying to figure out if the numbers are close. But they will be there, truthfully, as part of the Supreme Court order. They're there. So that's sort of where we are. And the next step is really for the town to think about, do they want to file? And if they do, then we should start thinking about that process and get it underway, because there's not a lot of work that has to be done on our part, but we do have to resurrect the plan, and we also have to come up with a new spending plan, which is now outdated because of things that have happened over the years, so we have to generate a new spending plan on it. That's where we are. I'll try to answer any questions right now, but the main thing is to decide whether or not we want to remain part of the process.
So if we file, that would lend us protection against builder's remedy.
Well, yes. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But is there any conflict with what we're doing with the Highlands?
Well, that has to be part of what's going to be resolved by the courts, because we've gotten 2 numbers. We originally got what COA came up with as the obligation. All the towns got that. Then COA and the Highlands negotiated an agreement as to what the buildable area or how much buildable land was in communities, how much they had to supply. They came up with an agreement as to what that number would be, which is considerably lower than what COA had come up with initially. If that number has been upheld, and some of the correspondence I have seems to imply it has been, if that number's been upheld, then that's the number we start with, the lower number. If it hasn't, then we got to go back and look at a larger number and go from there.
All right, so there's no contradiction, and there's really, I guess, no liability in going ahead and filing, trying to conform to what the courts are asking for. The courts are going to make a decision at that point. Then at that point, it's between Highlands and COA to figure out what needs to be done if the numbers change.
Yes, except that our approach would be to use, unless we're told the court case failed, we're going to use the Highlands numbers.
Right,
that's what we're going to go to the court with.
Right. And they, in their infinite wisdom, could do what they basically want, turn it on its ears, but we're doing what we can do to protect ourselves. If it's the court, COA, and the Highlands, it's their battle then to fight it out. We're just saying, based on what we're told right now, here's what we're planning to do. If you guys come up with a different plan, we'll come back to the drawing board and figure out what we need to do then to meet the letter of the law.
Yes, and like many court cases, and I'll defer to the attorneys on this, once the court takes jurisdiction, what COA thinks or believes probably isn't all that important. The courts can do what they want to do on an issue. They can ask, I guess, for COA's advice, but theoretically, the Supreme Court decision here has pretty much taken them right out of the loop and says it's going to go over to us.
Pretty much said you guys have done nothing, we're gonna
We're going to do it.
for you.
We're going to do it for you. They're basically going back to an old model we had 20 years ago when the courts were heavily involved in making these decisions. I think there's more positive aspects to going than not going, because I think it's very important to keep your protection as long as you can. And I think we have a plan that should be approvable. It's just that it's never been acted on because COA has not
Been reviewed by a lot of people.
It's been reviewed and it's been sitting on a shelf for a long time. So that's my sense of it. But again, as I said, there's nothing mandatory in the order that says the town must. You can choose, and I think now there's around, let me get this right, there's 250, 300 towns that have chosen not to go into COA. They've never gone in. And the courts are not going to, if you haven't filed with COA, they don't want to hear from you. So the bottom line is this period, this 30-day period for filing is for those people who file, who want to try to comply, and that's who the court wants to hear from first. The people that have never bothered with this process, they're going to be left out, period, at least for a while. They'll probably take a minute at some point.
So that they would be subject to building remedy?
Well, they are now. All the towns that have not filed or are not part of the COA process are subject to builder's remedy right now.
So,
yes.
Again, myself being new to the board, what is the ultimate goal of COA? What is it that they're trying to do with the township?
Well, the ultimate goal of COA, and I'm not saying just within Lopatcong Township, is to provide affordable housing within the state of New Jersey as the courts have decided is mandated by your Constitution. In other words, the courts, I get the years wrong, but this goes back, what, 20 years now? Yeah, that the courts, 30 years, the courts decided that the New Jersey Constitution mandates the provision of affordable housing. That's where it started from. COA was the outgrowth of that, a process to help communities in the state keep it out of the courts. That was the original goal, was to get it out of the courts and get it more administratively functioning. Over the last 10, 12 years, that's sort of faltered and hasn't gone anywhere, and the courts have now taken back the jurisdiction. But the real goal is to produce affordable housing. And
Okay, so where we're at right now in the pack today, 2015.
Yeah.
We do not have that. We would have to create that housing.
No, the township over the years has produced actually quite a bit of affordable housing, either through rentals, through, truthfully, through some of the builders coming in and actually building some of it. And the town has provided a share of that. But to protect yourself from lawsuits, protect yourself from the builder's remedy, you need a certified, what they call a certified plan, that has to have COA's stamp of approval on it. We have submitted plans that show that we complied with their regulations. They have not approved it because they have not, over the last couple of years, been able to approve what they call a third round set of regulations. So there's a lot of towns with their applications laying at COA that can't get a decision.
Mr. Spazzaro. Yes, sir. May I ask, is it possible through this that we can, and for lack of better terminology, is there a way that Lopatcong Township can request a cease and desist to that because of the financial condition of the community?
I'm not aware of any exemption because of our financial condition. I dare say there may be other towns that are in a much more difficult position. I've read that court decision. There's no exceptions to it. We all need to comply.
So there's no case law or anything that would represent a town or anything to say that we can't comply to what the government or whatever the state regulation is? There's nothing that we can do.
To my knowledge, no.
Do we need any further building to accommodate what the requirement is?
I'll defer to George on that as to where we were with COA when this whole process sort of grind to a halt. We have an affordable housing obligation. I candidly don't know where we stand with it. George, maybe you know.
Well, just interject with that so you can answer. Is there an end date, or is there a date that we are supposed to be adhering to? Is there a date that we're supposed to have X number of people in affordable housing?
Well, there are. That's what's called the different rounds. There was round 1, round 2. This is supposedly round 3. There have been goals set in each of those rounds where the obligation is reviewed, what you've done has been reviewed, and then they update it and tell you what your new round is going forward. There isn't, I guess if your question is there ever going to be an end that they say that you've met your obligation? Meaning, period, we're not going to reevaluate it, we're not going to recalculate it. The answer is no. It's supposed to be reviewed and updated on a regular basis. Every, 6 years or something like that. They do these reviews, and then they look at what you've done, what you haven't done, and said, okay, going forward, you have to provide X houses, or you've provided it. As the plan that we currently have on file up there shows that we have met our obligation for this round, but it's just never been approved. And going forward, I would be careful to say that as new development comes into the town, it would behoove the town to make sure that it gets some affordable housing in it, because going forward, the odds are, unless COA disappears, unless the Supreme Court disappears, there's always going to be some obligation out there in the future for new development. And so I would think that's an ongoing process that the town would be looking at as they go forward.
What is the downside, or what is the negative effect if the township does not meet that obligation?
You're just, as I said earlier, this is voluntary. You don't have to do anything, quite frankly. But what you leave the town open to is a builder's remedy. And what that means is an individual, a private individual, can come in here and say that you haven't met your constitutional obligation to provide affordable housing, and I'm going to do it for you. And I'm going to do it on that site. And I'd like 12 to the acre, 15 to the acre, whatever. Pick a number. And I'm going to set aside 15, 20% of the units for low and moderate income housing, and I'm going to do what you refuse to do. And then you're going to go to court. Both sides are going to spend a year or two fighting over it and trying to figure out whether you're going to go along with it or not. And finally, the court's going to make up their mind whether or not they're going to approve what he's doing. And that's the risk you run, that you end up with a project that you have very little control over, that you end up having to accept, and you run the risk of having to defend yourself in court, fight over it, and these things usually drag out for years. That's all I'll say. And that's what the risk you run. And then also the builder can come in as an example and ask for the courts to order that they have special consideration on utilities. They could come in and say, I'm going to build 500 units. And while this suit is going on, because it's a scarce resource in this town, I'm going to ask the judge to freeze your sewage gallonage so that I have at least enough gallonage to serve my 500 units if I win. Well, that's fine. If he wins, he gets it. If he doesn't, though, the number of years you're fighting, nobody gets it. So you have that kind of game. There is a downside to not complying.
Thank you, sir. It's just bizarre. How much open land is in this community that people can build on? Within Lopatcong Township?
I have no idea.
George,
Well, there's a fair amount of open land that's out there because
Buildable land.
quite buildable.
Where you can put residential.
Quite buildable. And the thing you have to realize is that a developer coming into a town doesn't have to follow your zoning. they could go out in the middle of your industrial park and pick 90 acres out of that and declare that the site. They could find, and the other thing is that the densities they're looking for, they don't need big tracts to have a fairly good impact. They can go out and buy 50 acres at 18 to the acre, 12 to the acre. I can produce a lot of units. Your town does not have a large amount of the area in the preservation area. The biggest chunk of it is in the planning area. And there is vacant ground out there. That's all I can say. And it's to the tune of a fair amount. I mean, talking 20, 50, 100 acres is floating around out there.
We have a copy of the Highlands report that you might be interested in reading it. It's going to answer pretty much all your questions. The Highlands has a build-out plan, and based on our master plan and what we've done with the restrictions that we put in, like steep slopes and what have you, they take that in consideration. They do a build-out, and they say, here's what we project you're going to build. Based on that, then they come up with an affordable housing number saying, so here's the number you got to meet based on the build-out. So then as people come in, developers come in and want to build, we have to make sure that we're allocating that, a proportion of that, so that we don't get caught short when the property gets eaten up and there's very little, and somebody says, you got to build all that affordable housing because you didn't kind of like weave it in as time went on.
Can I ask, is that something, that plan, is that something we want to build on? Or would we rather prefer not to build?
Well,
and this is a voluntary program. Why do we want to continue to build when we have enough economic strife and issues within this township? Why do we want?
You're thinking you can stop building? No, you can't stop the building.
Sure you can.
No.
Sure you can. You can stop
Okay.
building. You can stop building.
Only if you own the property.
Yeah. We cannot stop the building. And that's the whole thing. People out there think that we control what gets built. All that we can do.
Oh, we don't. But you can stop building.
No, you can't. The courts have learned, the courts over the years have picked out every trick in the book, and they put in legislation to make sure that they'll stop it.
Okay, so
for example, I'm going to put in a development, but guess what? I'm going to put a requirement that every street has to be 90 feet wide. So now your density can't be as much as what you want. They say, nope, sorry, you got to be realistic. You got to stick it 60 feet. In some cases, you got to go down.
So I understand that, and I can appreciate that. But how much buildable land do we have in Lopatcong?
Quite a bit.
Anything that doesn't have a building out now.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
We need to know how much.
We have that. If you read the Highlands report, it's all in the Highlands report.
Well, it's in the report, and
Yeah.
what can we as a township take over? What can we minimize in
You want the town to buy the property?
possibly?
You're right.
You'll never,
Millions of dollars.
yeah.
Can it happen? I don't know.
If somebody wills us, what,
We
$700 million?
we considered buying a parcel one time,
I think we're getting a little.
and we could. The impact on the tax rate was too great. If you look the whole time, it's just it's an unfeasible idea.
Look, I come into this green, so I don't know. So
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you got to get your copy of that report.
I think the questions that you're raising really go to the governing body. This board considers applications for development based upon zoning that exists. It can consider requests for zoning changes. And we're going to have an informal presentation on that this evening. But our jurisdiction is limited by the Land Use Act and what we can do. We are not in the business of acquiring property, trying to prevent development. It's beyond the scope of what we do.
Okay.
And we don't want to give the impression that that's what we do, is prevent development. We're here to build it and build it as smart as possible.
You know,
Something that
Yeah, just a few points. The reason why George is bringing this to your attention is part of putting together an affordable housing plan is preparing a housing element, which is part of the master plan. You're required to have one, and the plan is under the planning board's domain. The second part of it's the affordable housing plan and the petition to COA, in this case to court, which is really a governing body issue. So I think a lot of things that George is talking about tonight are probably more relevant to the governing body. I know we have the mayor's here tonight, so he's going to be dealing with this eventually at the governing body level. But in the eventuality that we do go to the court to file a declaration and some work to the housing element is required, I think he's giving you some background as to why that may happen and what your responsibilities will be. I think the second point I'd like to make is I think the town is actually in a very favorable position right now. We put together a responsible plan. It was deemed complete by COA. It was never acted upon. And I don't think this town would ever want to expose itself to a builder's remedy. It's going to render your zoning, at least on select parcels, useless at this point. It's going to be really decided by the builder or the court. And really where a builder, is going to attack is going to be in the sewer service area, which are your more developed areas of town where you have water and sewer facilities, and there is sewer capacity right now. So you wouldn't want to all of a sudden lose your sewer capacity to an unwanted project at this point. Right now it's basically being directed in a wastewater management plan to certain properties, the Ingersoll Rand redevelopment, for example. And we wouldn't want some of that steered away to some other unwanted affordable housing project that the court dictates on us. So, if you're looking for my 2 cents, I don't think we expose ourselves to that. And I think, if I'm at a governing body meeting, I'm going to, emphasize my opinion on that. I don't think we ever expose ourselves. We keep ourselves clean here and try to get approval.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'd add is it's better for us to plan for it than let an outside source come in and tell us what we're going to do. It tends to be much smoother to plan for. It may still be distasteful in some ways, but it's much better to actually think about it and plan for it in the long run, particularly when you have numbers that it looks like we can actually meet and comply with. If all of a sudden our numbers were 700 and we could only figure out how to do 100, well, maybe that's an issue. But those kind of separations also get you sued if you have that big a gap. So I just think it's better that we've tried to keep control of it over all these years. I just think it's a much better to plan for these activities than let it happen to us. That's just my general.
That's always been what we've been doing since COA's been
around. I will also say that many of the towns that have chosen not to do it are like the shore towns that have zero open ground, and somebody has to go in and buy 5 blocks of one of the shore towns, knock all the homes down and build it. The ones that have chosen not to have any part of this are ones that truly have virtually no open ground. Or, the builders would probably like to get in there, but they can't figure out where to get into the process. Almost all the communities that have open ground are at risk, and they're the ones that try to plan.
George, what's the next step? I mean, it's the governing body.
I think it's the governing body. They got to make a decision whether we participate or not. Then it comes down to us pulling the plan together, the attorneys working on what has to be filed. If there are amendments to the housing element or the plan, obviously that would be discussed with the board and with council, because in the end, council has to recommend the plan. They got to vote on it and say, here, we agree to this plan before it goes to the court. So it in the end is a council decision.
We submitted a plan for certification to COA, and that didn't go anyplace. So now we have to submit to the court.
Yes.
All right. How much change is there between what we're going to submit to the court versus what we submitted to COA?
Probably not a lot in volume. The only thing that we're still struggling with a little bit is what number we start.
And it's not a huge number, right?
No.
Yeah.
Comply.
It just seems to me, and I'm new to COA, but if we took the effort to apply to COA to round 3 and all we have to do is tweak it, submit it again to a different entity, and protect ourselves. To me, it's a no-brainer.
Well, I agree. That's the way I see it. And also, if it goes into the courts, and as I said, the courts look at it and go, yeah, it's sort of good, but we don't agree with this. They give you there's a 5-month time period in there to make corrections.
Well, what's harm in just taking what we have, our last submittal, and just use that?
Well, we will, but we'll have to update it like the spending plan and a few other things. They have to be updated.
But do you have to take this proposal to the governing body now, or does the planning board make a recommendation, or?
Well, we would take, and first of all, I got to resurrect something that's been laying around since 2010. We'll see what's all in it. We'll clean it up. The spending plan is something that council has to approve, because they're going to commit to how we outline the money that's to be spent, or how we're going to meet our obligation. It might not all involve spending money, but I mean, the answer is we got to show that. And they, in the end, will have to endorse the plan and recommend it. We'll have to basically endorse it and say that we're going to stand behind this. And that's what's going to go. I think it's going to be essentially our plan with the numbers tweaked to match what the current thinking is in terms of what I want to say here. I just developed a mental block. The courts have found a part of the old plan illegal. We're going to have to figure out how to tweak those numbers out, because they basically said they don't want to see them. So we have to do that. But generally, it's going to be the same plan. It's going to be taken up there and turned in.
What's the deadline?
Well, there's 90 days. From March 10th, there's 90 days before the court order takes effect. And then we have 30 days to submit.
Okay.
Yeah, between June 8th and July 8th.
Yeah.
Well, who has to tell you to take it up there? The governing body?
Well, sure, they should decide. It's not my decision to submit. They can choose to do it. They can decide they don't want it. They want to take their chances.
But they can't make a decision until they see what those numbers are, the spending.
Well, the answer is yes. But what I'm saying is that I guess what they should consider is authorizing us putting all this stuff together, because that will take a little bit of time. And then we can obviously review it with them. I mean, I'll be honest, in my other town, we're holding a meeting tomorrow to do exactly that, to discuss where we're at, what we're going to do, and how we're going to file.
Would it be helpful for us to have you put that plan together now and then recommend that going up to the council? Or do you want this to originate at the council level?
Well, I suspect it can come from either. I don't mind if this board recommends we pull it together. In the end, council got up.
Well, my view is the master plan is under the jurisdiction of the planning board. The housing element is a part of the planning board. So assuming we have the budget, it would be proper for us to tell you to pull this together,
which we can resurrect and pull back out. That's right.
You have a feel for how much effort is involved?
It's not going to be a large effort, but I don't know. I haven't dug the file.
My next question is, do we have budget to do this? And then, assuming we do,
well, let me see what we got
together.
buried. I'll get back to you, Barry, on that. I'll see what we got, where we are.
Well, I don't mean to get ahead of myself, but it seems to me that certain amount of work has to happen, and then we would say, yes, we agree with it, and then you can take that up to council.
But being that time is of the essence, we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. We should do this. We got to do the work. So, do we want to authorize it, get you going on this at least, and get everything ready so that council can make the decision in a timely manner as well?
Now, I'll be honest with you. Some of this funding can come right out of the COA funds, because it's being mandated, so part of this can be drawn out of that. The funds that are on hand for affordable housing in town. So it's not like it's a budget item that totally has to come out of the general budget of the town. It could come out of an affordable trust fund. I say that without knowing what's exactly.
And who controls that? The town or the planning board?
No, we'll actually.
Wayne's our COA guy.
Okay.
Uh,
I would like to get you started, assuming we can do it properly and there are funds to pay you. And being new, I don't know what the answer is.
I
I
don't
would
know what
say
the balance
that's
of
an
funds is
appropriate way to
myself.
go. That the planning board should start full rolling and then hand the
Well,
package up to the governing body.
I really think we should look into doing it because of the fact that if we don't, the cost could be a lot higher than we're looking at now, just in legal fees that we should be facing. So I would like to, at this point, entertain a motion that we authorize George to go ahead and put the package together, come back to the board, we'll review it. Like I say, whatever funds we have to draw it from, we'll draw it from.
Gary, if I can interject
Certainly.
something, respectfully, I think this is a governing body. Paul, historically, it's been a governing body that has taken the lead with this, and they're the ones in control of the purse strings. The budget we have is not designed to deal with this. It doesn't come out of our budget. I think we can and should make a recommendation to the governing body to move forward with this, but I don't think we can or should authorize George to just pick up the ball and necessarily run with it.
All right, so what we could do though is,
Let's leave it at that.
we recommend that council, that the governing body goes on it, but if they approve it, he has authorization to go ahead from the board.
What I think the board should do is authorize Tony to write a letter to the governing body indicating that we feel that the governing body should authorize George to move ahead with modifying the housing element fair share plan.
Okay, so there's no problem with the council authorizing.
And work with the municipal attorney on his declaratory judgment that will be filed between June 8th and July 8th. And the council has a meeting next Wednesday night, right here, April 1st, and they get Tony. I'm certainly going to get Tony's letter in the next couple of days, and Beth can put it on the agenda, and they can take the action.
Great.
Because we don't control the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It's really something that is, I think, under the governing body's purview.
So do we need a motion for that, or?
Would you be inclined to do that as mayor? Okay. I just authorize Tony to send a letter. We need a motion on that?
Yes.
Okay. Do I hear a motion? Do I hear a second?
Thanks, Mike.
Roll call, Beth, please.
Yes, members Clymer,
Yes.
Dagan.
Yes.
Fishback.
Yes.
Morale.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Riptak.
Yes.
Mayor McKay.
Yes,
Vice Chairman Pryor.
Yes.
And Chairman Moore.
Yes.
Point of order. Sorry, are we still allowing the alternates to vote? Because I know there was an issue about this.
I think we had the ruling that they cannot vote. Is that correct?
So strike the alternates.
Strike the alternates unless,
Strike my vote.
hold on,
Yeah.
we don't have a full
We
complement of
don't
people.
have a full board.
I have a
So,
missing board member.
One, two, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got 6.
we need 9 is the full board.
Oh, that's right, sorry, okay, they
So
go into the.
so
it's the full membership, not the quorum.
Right, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Now Lou's not here, so that's
Right,
one
so we're
more.
good.
So we're good.
Okay.
Okay, we don't have to eliminate it.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I was the same thing.
Gotcha. I'm thinking quorum, but
Okay.
it's full complement.
Well, we're eating up time here and we're moving on. No further questions to George, hopefully. Okay, let's move on to the next order of business, and that'll be Larkin's Associates LP, Block 116, lots 2601, 27-02, and 28. It's an informal presentation concerning rezoning.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Michael Ogrodnik. I am an attorney at Morrow, Savo, Camero, Grant, and Shaw, and I represent Larkin Associates. We are here on, I have Mr. Robert Heibel from Van Cleef Engineering Associates as our professional engineer. We also have Lawrence Gardner, who is the principal and managing member of Larkin Associates, who is the informal applicant in the zoning request change. We've also submitted an informal site plan which details kind of a broad overview of the site. So unless there's any legal questions, I will defer to Mr. Hybel to explain the application, but just to note that Mr. Gardner is the developer for Warren Heights, which is on the north, east, and west of the approximate 16 acres that Mr. Gardner and Larkin Associates is under contract to purchase, contingent, of course, on a zoning change.
With the board's permission, in the interest of full disclosure, I understand we're not taking any actions, but I have in the past worked for Larkin 12 years ago, so that relationship is over. I bought a house from Larkin 5 years ago. I don't feel it's a conflict, but I bring that to everybody's attention.
As long as you're comfortable and feel you can disclose your duties impartially, there's no legal conflict here. You're not disqualified as a matter of law. So if you're comfortable with it, I think we can.
I am comfortable with the board. Yes.
Thank you.
I am. Good evening, Mr. Hybel.
This is going to be a fairly short presentation. 16 acres at Larkin Associates, 16.6 acres is currently owned by members of the opposite. It's outlined in yellow. There's actually 4 lots involved. 4 lots that are outlined in yellow. It's has frontage on Baltimore Street and also has frontage on 57. To the north of that is Warren Heights, which was developed by Larkin Associates, and to the west of it is also Warren Heights. That's Warren Heights South. That's why I call them in and this is Warren Heights North. Currently, the property is in the HB zone, which is the Highland Business Zone. The request would be considered to put the property within the same zones that Warren Heights is in, which is the R and F zone. And doing so would allow dwellings on the property of a similar type as were constructed in Warren Heights. Between Warren Heights South and this particular 16.6 acres, there's power lines and a stream corridor. That actually, both of those entities actually impede a portion of lot 28, which is 5.8 acres. But that can still be part of this zone request. Part of the RMF requirements is that you have a certain percentage of your land as open space. So I would hope for that we take advantage of that, have the riparian zone and the water area as open space, and try to place the remaining development on the remainder of the land. Based on the density that's allowed in the RMF, it's 12 units per acre. There's 16.6. That multiplies out to approximately a maximum density of 200 units.
That 200 and
200. It's actually 199. I rounded it up. These would be 2-bedroom apartments. That's the intent of Mr. Gardner to construct that. And that's once again in conformance with the zoning for the RMF. So it's our request to have the planning board review this request. If they think it's favorable, recommend a rezoning to the township.
Are you considering, in light of what you've heard, with our conflict with COA and our numbers here, are you going to make this an inclusionary housing area?
Yes, we would. And
Mr. Hybel, can you come up to the microphone?
I'm sorry.
If you're done with,
I'm sorry. In fact, Mr. Grodnick and I were discussing this in the back. In the last round of COA, and I don't know where COA is going in every round, but apartments, you actually got, Mr. Ritter, a 2-for-1 benefit. So
that's something that's up for grabs.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But if I turn the clock back what it was, So if you had an apartment unit and you gave 15% as an example, it would come out to 30%, will be double. So once again, that's why I'm stressing that these will be 2-bedroom apartments. These will not be townhouse condominiums.
Okay. The last round we went, I think they also were requiring 3-bedroom units, wasn't it? With co-op.
Yes, there would be some to meet their housing mix. There would be a few. I would assume if we could come to some understanding, the units that would be provided for affordable housing, whatever that might be,
Yes.
we get the bedroom mix, and
Yes,
these
exactly.
for those units that would comply with code.
Yeah, there was a percentage. You had to provide a certain percentage maximum of 1, a certain percentage maximum of 2, and a minimum of 3s. So assuming that that's the case, these affordable housing units would comply with that also. So it may turn out there may be a couple, based on this, I will tell you, probably on the last round, maybe 7 or 8, I would think, somewhere in that neighborhood might have to be 3 bedrooms.
Have you, in your thought about this, have you thought about the Route 57 frontage, whether or not if some commercial development along there might be worth retaining?
We talked about it, and the probability is that it would not be retained for this purpose, that we would utilize the entire 16.6 acres to have the residential component.
Okay, so at this time, you're not thinking of any retail, any type of activity on that front?
No.
What if the board wanted to see a strip along Route 57 retained as highway business at 250, 275 feet wide? Is that going to be a negative for your client, and you no longer would want the board to consider the zoning request?
Well, I would inform them as, at 12 units per acre, let's say the board wanted to say, we'll throw out a number that's easy math, 2 acres of the land along 57. That would be 2 acres less, so obviously the proposed density would go from 199, it would get reduced by 24 to 175. So if that was the board's pleasure and the township pleasure, I'm sure I'd have a discussion and he'd still be open-minded to it.
Thank you.
Were you considering combining this all into one lot?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just looking at it from the aspect of what your impervious cover would be required, and the open space acts on that.
Yeah, we would take out all the internal lot lines. There's a little 3-acre piece right next to Stryker's Plaza. Once again, I'd probably not put any units in that little bit, but that would be part of the 16.6 acres.
I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but should we envision access on Baltimore Street 57?
Well, Tony, I actually discussed that, and my client said, well, we need access off of Baltimore, and we would absolutely provide access off of Baltimore. I'm not ruling out that there may be an access off of 57. Once again, if the townships rezone this, we'd have to come in for an actual conceptual site plan, and at that point, we'd have a further discussion of that. So there may or may not be an access off of 57.
Thank you.
One question. I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but two of the existing shopping centers that are already out there, is that also controlled by Mr. Larkin's group?
One is at the intersection.
I guess the question I have is whether or not, if this were to go ahead, that we could integrate, like some of the driveways, so if people want to shop, they don't have to necessarily run back out on all the interior roads.
It would certainly be a benefit to have an internal driveway into that retail center.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I thought he also owned the property on the corner of Baltimore and
Up in,
Stryker.
yeah.
He also owns that.
There's an office. There was a
The
child
daycare
care center.
center.
Is that still there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yes. No, I meant the child care center, the daycare.
No, I think they moved.
That's what I'm
Originally
thinking.
had a daycare.
Yes.
But he owns, my main point is,
Yes.
my main point is he owns both of those properties.
Yes, he owns both of the properties. One's retail, one's office / child care, daycare.
And just to comment, because I do handle Mr. Gardner's landlord tenant, the leasing at that one corner unit hasn't been that great. So, that's why we're not looking at more strip mall type retail along 57. As the economy has recovered, we're at a very high rental rate in Warren Heights right now, somewhere around or above 90%. So that's why the goal is to continue with residential.
I don't know if you've gotten this far yet or not as far as architectural things, but how many stories would be the building?
These would be a maximum of 3 and probably 3.
Similar to what you have in the condominium units across the street and throughout that area.
Yes. The product might be slightly different. As time goes on, they don't keep trying to build exactly the same product.
Are these all going to be rental units? All of them? Yes, I believe. Larry, all rental units.
The answer is yes. I just wanted you to say that, not me.
And no.
Yes.
Further question?
Anything else, Bob, you want to add?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, we're to the point, no further business. I'll entertain public comment. Anyone from the public have any questions or? Hearing none. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Bob, before we
Yes.
board comment. I believe the lawsuit regarding 189 Strikers Road, pretty much all that finally sitting in close to it.
No,
No? Has the appeal been appealed?
I think the appeal has been appealed.
Okay.
I don't know where it stands. I mean, we have whether our attorney that was handling that indicating that the parties involved had missed the deadline for the appeal. However, it's not clear whether I think they reappealed or repetitioned the
They filed a
Court.
motion. They filed a motion.
Right, yeah, I got a copy of the letter. They miscounted the days and they filed for appeal.
They missed it by 1 day, so they made application to the appellate division for leave to file the appeal out of time.
Okay.
Whether they'll grant it or not, I don't know. If I was a betting man, I'd say yes. I don't think the court will deny them for the 1 day because there is significant public interest in that development. I think the appellate division will hear it. I could be wrong, but I think that those appeals will proceed. We will know. We will in a matter of time. We'll know how long they will take. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, now, full comment.
Any further comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
We want to discuss this presentation at all.
I didn't.
I said, do we want to discuss the presentation by Larkin? They made an informal presentation. In fairness to them, I think they're looking for some feedback from this board. Ultimately, this board would consider their request and make a recommendation to the governing body or not, as the case may be. But I think they deserve, they came in seeking some input, and I think they're entitled to it.
Okay, I'll throw this out there. Based on what we're just surprised of regarding the COA issue, and this whole situation of being thrown back into the courts and everything based on our master plan, everything based on the way we have our town currently zoned, to go in and start changing that at this time, I don't think will be prudent. I think it opens us up to more liability in terms of well, why you're doing this, and if you're doing this and you can do this, we got a master plan, been there for over 30 years. We've been tweaking it as we go along. It's been holding fast, and I think given the current climate with the courts, I don't think now is the time to be making changes.
George, do you want to address that from the vantage point of its impact, if any, on where we stand with COA?
Well, if council and the board would decide that this has some merit, okay, and you'd want to go ahead with it, the one thing that I would hope as a board and as a council would insist that this applicant provide his fair share of affordable housing, which means that would cover it going forward. In other words, it wouldn't put us out of balance in the sense of COA or that aspect of it. And it would take and plan a piece of property for affordable housing, which I don't think can hurt our case in front of the court to say we're providing it. Because probably what they hear from the advocates for affordable housing is these towns aren't doing it. So obviously having a plan in the works was something that I don't think that could hurt our case in front of the judge, for lack of a better term. And I don't think it would hurt us in the long run in terms of numbers, as long as we insist that the applicant, which he's indicated a willingness to do, provide affordable housing in the project. So I don't see it as a risk in that sense. But it obviously has to be evaluated as to whether you think it's the right number, the right density, the right place. Do you want retail? That kind of thing is something you have to think about on the site. But I don't think it would jeopardize our COA application.
Yeah, the only one of the issues that I think we come up with right now, our zoning says it's 2-bedroom. However, we have to get COA. COA's going to say you got a 3-bedroom. And I just think that opens us up again to getting a higher density in there than what's in the surrounding area.
Well,
adjacent property.
Well, what I will say, and the density is up to us to evaluate and decide whether we want it. But the point being is that if you have a willing developer who agrees to a density to provide a certain percentage of housing, that's fine. In other words, it doesn't open it up to further negotiation. It's really something that the gentleman in the back is going to have to sit here with his board and say, oh, yes, I'll give you 20%, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I will provide the housing mix that COA needs in affordable apartments, and everything else will be 2 bedrooms. You've met the letter and intention of the law in that case. You shouldn't leave yourself open for anything at that point as it relates to this development.
I would also add it may afford us the opportunity to better meet our COA obligation because of the number of units that are being built there. The density and what the mix is going to be will certainly be subject to some negotiation. I think it gives us some leeway, some wiggle room in lieu of trying to find a parcel if we had to build units ourselves to comply with COA requirements. It may be an opportunity for this municipality as well. And I'm just looking at the surrounding properties, and I don't know where to the north, the area is pretty densely developed, and to the west, you can find the same thing. I don't think it's out of character with what's out there, but that ultimately is for the board's determination.
Now I didn't mean to interrupt, but we're commenting here. If we were the Board of Adjustment and they were coming to us for a use variance, they'd be presenting testimony on positive and negative criteria and so on. And we're all sitting here talking, conducting an auction among ourselves about what's positive, what's negative, what's good, what's bad. And I recognize we're only making a recommendation, but I don't think it's unfair to ask more from the applicant over what's the benefit to the township of this proposal and why it's not a negative. And I've heard some good things. I've heard COA, I've heard connecting, connection to the strikers and so on. But I'd like to see a little more from from the applicant before we're expected to make an evaluation and a recommendation.
I think what would happen here is we would need to do a supplement to the master plan. And there would be a public hearing that this board would conduct. We've done this on some properties already, and that would outline the benefits and the planning reasons why this board would make that recommendation. So, and that would be something we would want Mr. Gardner to fund if the board wants to move in that direction.
Well, I'm getting at that. Whether he does it or he funds it, I think there's more work to be done here, and it's proper work before we can even make a recommendation.
In comparison to what you say, if he went in front of the Board of Adjustment, one of the things that I think might be useful for the board to look at, in addition to what we've talked about here, is that if they have an idea of how they want to develop the site, they could prepare a sketch that would show how this density fits on the site as they envision, so that the board could see how it fits. I mean, a sketch. I'm not talking about engineered. I'm not talking about.
Yeah, I know. I'm agreeing with you.
So that the board could get a feel for what 12 DU per acre looks like on this site, and see if that and how it's interconnected with the road systems. And that
I think what you would do is, I think another positive here is you would have a bigger pool of residents, and the business community isn't increasing right now, so you'd have more residents to use the local businesses here, which and some of the businesses are struggling right now. So I think that could be, a positive. I think probably should be a comparison between if this site was developed as an HB district development, there's going to be a certain amount of traffic and a certain amount of wastewater generation, a certain amount of water usage, and compare that to what the residential traffic generation and water usage and wastewater generation would be. Probably should be some comparison. There may be some pluses with respect to to residential versus commercial. Maybe some negatives too. But I think with the wastewater generation, but there should be, I think, some comparison in that regard.
Eventually, the ultimate authority would be the council, though, as far as zoning change, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I mean,
But they're looking for a recommendation from us, and I don't think we have enough to make a recommendation yet.
I would also like to ask that what is the percentage, when you say COA, when you look at the township, what is the percentage of the township that you're supposed to have? And are you talking specifically number of people that live there or number of dwellings?
No, the normal set aside was 20%. It was considered to be reduced to 15. I would say that if someone comes in and is asking for a zoning request, a change in density, that's open for discussion. But those are the ranges, 15 to 20%.
Where do we stand today with Lopatcong?
Well, no, this is new development. I'm not talking about 20% of the whole town. What was built prior to COA and everything else is basically grandfathered. That's not the issue. It's new construction going forward. You'd be looking at the 15 to 20% range as set aside.
I think we have all learned over time that if you bring in, I don't care if it's a townhome or an apartment, whatever those magical numbers are, 2.3 people per home or dwelling, whatever, are never realistic. It's going to be a huge impact on sewer, your water usage and all. There'll be a significant impact. So I would just ask that there needs to be a little bit more.
That's what we're asking for.
Yeah, there needs to be a little bit more done before the determination can be made.
And I'd also like to have the presentation put before council, because they're the ultimate authority on zoning changes, and we can make the recommendations, but if they're gonna on board from the beginning, why go through the exercise?
How do we feel about giving up the highway business on 57?
There's, to see something we would have to look at.
Yeah.
I mean, what would the ratables be on a set rental apartment as opposed to be?
I mean, if we were to grant the subdivision, but take that, the property bordering 57 and keep that highway business.
But again, I don't know how the numbers work for them for
You know,
doing
so
that, whether
I
it now
guess that's
becomes a
kinda like
viable situation.
The different scenarios that if they're looking to come and give us a full-fledged presentation, we need to see some options there. And I think that would be one of them to say, you know, multifamily for the whole tract, or take this portion and leave that 157 frontage, leave that highway business, show various access points, that little jut out of the couple of acres there next to, in between the two facilities there. That might be an access point out to Stryker's Road. You know, give you three ways into that place, 57, Baltimore, and Stryker's Road. You know, I guess these are the things that
We also have to run this through Highlands also.
that's the other thing too. You know.
I mean, it's a regional master plan reexamination, but they're gonna reexamine our reexamination. And they're in the midst now of reexamining their own master
Right.
plan. So, I mean,
That's what I was
There's
alluding
so
to.
much-
We're in a state of flux here, and
6 ways from Sunday. I mean, it's,
but we're.
and I'm sure the applicant wants the zoning change before he commits to all the engineering that he's gonna
Right.
go through to do this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't wanna hang you out there, but,
Yeah, if I may, I think that's the point. I mean, I think the point for here is this something the town wants? If yes, we'll get an economist, we'll look at how it'll affect the ratables, which is really why we wanna, this is why we're not seeking a use variance.
Right.
We're trying to see at the inception whether economically it makes sense. I can tell you again, retail is not working over there. It's just not leasing out. And that's why, I don't care, you could build more retail, but I don't think it's going to lease out. And residential is working. So, from an economic standpoint, a developer has to, they develop all types of mixed use, from office and every type of use they would develop if it's economically feasible. But office and retail are not particularly in demand, kind of outside of town.
I understand that retail, but, we have Warren Hospital right here, and the medical support industry seems to be doing very well in town. Village Medical seems to be busting at the seams. I don't know. I think there's things here to discuss. And I also understand you don't want to commit to the engineering. I've been in towns where they've bifurcated variances. You deal with the use first. But you can't deal with use in a vacuum. You have to have a concept. And I think that's what we're looking for, a little more of a concept and a better handle on the advantages and perhaps disadvantages.
Well, may I suggest perhaps coming back with a planner and perhaps an economist to discuss those issues. If you're more concerned about site layout, that's another issue as well.
Well, there's a difference between a concept and a site plan, and I don't think anybody's looking for a finished site plan. But.
Well, I think if you look at Warren Heights, it's going to be basically an updated version of that. I mean, I don't think it's gonna not be a great variance, but certainly we're always welcoming architectural comments, and that's not an issue. That's never been an issue with this developer. But we really want to know if the town wants it or they don't. And
I agree with you. That's why I want to get in,
because these are
council to see which way they would go with it. Also, I don't want to go to the exercise and then find out that they didn't want to do it to begin with.
I also think that you're absolutely right. The retail has been sluggish, if not very down to that area. But you would have to do an awful lot to convince me that bringing 200 plus people into that area is going to do something that's going to better not just the economy in the area, but how is that going to better the people of Lopatcong and what we live with in the daily life, meaning our taxes, our schools. How does that better what we're seeing?
Yeah.
knowing Mr. Heibel and Mr. Gardner, I suspect that probably in Bob's back pocket, he's got a little sketch somewhere, because I don't think they would have gone to contract and come to this board with a request for a zoning change unless they had some idea of what the layout would be and what this would yield. That's my suspicion anyway. And I think at some point it would help your client to share that with us so we have some basic idea of what you're proposing here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we would have a problem with doing another conceptual review. But again, I mean, it's to Warren Heights, it's going to very much be continued with that type of density, that type of architecture. Again, maybe updated with some better quality detail.
One of the questions that I raised was access, and I think if you've got more than one idea or just have one idea, how do you intend to get in and out, and what are the options here for this property?
So,
Mr. Heibel, was I wrong in my assumption?
Not totally wrong. I thought about it, though. I haven't put it in paper. As far as the density, I'm pretty sure that at the end of the day, if I tell you it's 12 units per acre, that's what it's going to yield. Because that's by marching orders. Might change the architecture a little. And if we have 16.5, it would be 200, 199. Just as an example, 2 acres along about 57. There'd be 175. At the end of the day, I can almost guarantee that that would be it.
Okay. Thank you.
What I think would be helpful is if there was some sort of narrative provided, and you would have an HB district development, and you would come up with a theoretical floor area based on our ordinance, theoretical amount of impervious coverage, and a theoretical amount of traffic, 24-hour APT traffic, theoretical wastewater generation, theoretical water usage, things like that. And then you compare it to your development, under an RMF scenario. Also, school kids, actually, there will be 0 school kids under the commercial. There will be some school kids under the residential. So there'll be some school kids. I mean, the 2-bedroom is going to be a limiting factor. So you're not going to have that many school kids, but there will be school kids. That's a difference between the 2 developments. So that should be put into the narrative. So I think that would be helpful to the board if they had that comparison.
I think that we can do that really without doing the actual layout of an HB zone. What the zoning ordinance would allow you.
Ironically, actually, I was just looking at the ordinance, and this is something I wouldn't expect to see. Actually, the impervious coverage in the HB district is lower in our ordinance than it is for the RMF. It's actually 50% for HB district and 60% in RMF. So we actually have more coverage with the residential.
I suspect that's why they want to rezone the area as the variant zone.
What I would do, and I don't know the answer, and it's always dangerous when I don't know the answer, but what I do is I'd go back to Warren Heights north and south, and even though you may have 60% in the ordinance, my prediction is that we didn't utilize the 60%. We developed it at 12 units per acre. So I would also make that comparison.
Great. Thank you.
So I guess in the end, the question is, do you want us to do that and come back and make a presentation, a further presentation to this board?
I think it would be very helpful to do that, yes.
I feel I got to be stubborn on this. I mean, I'm pretty certain I can see how this is a benefit to the market. I want to hear your reason why this is a benefit to the township.
Fair enough. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Seeing none, entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, okay.